quick one on variants, since we talked about different vaccines. You know, we've heard and talked and seen a variants, UK strain and South African strain and other strains. So some quick thoughts on what these strains are, what mutants are, what vaccine does, how long are they valid for, do you have to take it annually, do these vaccines work against these strains? So general, I'm clubbing in a lot of my thoughts in one question. So whichever ones you want to pick up.
Okay, so I think, yeah, these are questions I think mostly we get asked these days. What are these strains, and will my vaccine cover the strains or not? So strains are basically mutations. The viruses are known to mutate. All of you who have been taking a flu jab know that you have to take one yearly. And why do you have to do that? Because viruses are known not to remain. They're very vacillating creatures. They just change every year. And so therefore, there are certain changes that are made to the vaccine that is given in order to cover the newest variant. So with regards to COVID, most of the virus at the moment that is affecting is being covered by the vaccine that we have. And what are variants? These are mutations that have been identified in a particular country, and that's why they've been given, you know, the South African variant or a UK variant or a Brazil variant or a New York variant. And why are we interested in these variants? Because these variants have been shown to have either increased transmissibility or increased severity or reduced neutralizing potential by the vaccines. So that is why we are interested in these strains. And whether all these strains will be covered by the vaccines or not is something I will not be able to answer right at this moment. But I think when you get your first dose, that is the one that increases gets your antibodies up and about, creates memory cells. And when you get the second dose, it is to boost the memory. Maybe in the future, how long does it work for? Nobody really knows, but from data that we know at the moment, at least for about 8 or 9 months, you have some protection from the vaccine that you have, and you will keep needing to boost yourself. How frequently or how less frequently is something that is what time is going to tell us. Maybe it'll be like your flu jab that you've been taking until the disease becomes endemic and everyone has mild disease, which, as Vikranjit says, is not in the very near future at all. So that is how I think things will go.
I'd like to spend some time on the variants, because I think this is something that we should recognize as a huge cause of concern. At this point, we are at a path of this pandemic where what happens next is extremely, extremely nebulous and unpredictable. Just learning from where these variants ran rampant, for example, the Brazil strain. I'll just give you a case example. There's a city called Manaus in Brazil, which had, after the first wave last year, around 76% herd immunity when you check their antibodies. So people were comfortable, social distancing was removed, and then the Brazil strain hit that city and completely overwhelmed their ICU capacity, took their second wave. The UK second wave that happened in November and December was because of a variant, the B117, which was, like Dr. Chowdhury mentions, more transmissible by 90%, more lethal by 60%, and more pregnant women got affected by that, a very severe form of disease. The South African variant, which is coming into news, has some resistance against some of the vaccines, though the severe form of this variant is still prevented by the AstraZeneca Oxford. The New York variant is relatively new, but as we look more and more for these variants, some of these will be vaccine resistant, some of these will be causing reinfections, and we have to prepare ourselves for all, like we say, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. We should prepare for the worst as these variants run rampant.
There are a number of questions around the timing of the second jab after the first jab on antibodies. And while we'll cover antibodies later, perhaps maybe I want to pick up a few questions that I have. And I have an interesting one from Neeraj Rathi, who gives a hypothetical situation of, if I have taken a vaccine which has, say, 70% efficacy, and then after some time there's another vaccine which comes out which has 99% efficacy. Do I have the ability to take the 99% the vaccine which has 99% efficacy?
You want to answer or you want me to?
I'll take a stab at it, Dr. Chowdhury. So essentially, if you're taking one of these vaccines that was described, in the proper dose and the proper time span, taking 2 of the vaccines for the ones that are double dose, you should not need a second, more efficacious vaccine, because all these vaccines are equally good in preventing the severe form of the disease. But as the time comes, as new variants and new mutations happen, you might need a booster dose. And which kind of a booster dose you will need or will take is up in the air. I don't think we know the answer to that yet.
Yes, I completely agree. I think it's best not to mix and match between your first and the second dose, because your body's just getting used to the kind of virus, the antigen that it has been presented with, and the two work separately. But in time, this is still a very fluid situation. When you are to get a booster dose, many new vaccines and much more, information is going to be out there in the months to come, and it might change as time goes on.
And any ideal time period when you need to take that second booster dose, say in the case of Covishield? I know that the government prescribes a 4-week period, and then you wait for another 2 weeks for that antibody. But Dr. Chowdhury, any sort of thought? Because this is a question which has been asked by a couple of people.
So it's about a small study that came out, which showed that, the longer you leave from the first vaccine to the booster part of the second, up to 12 weeks, the better the chances are of a prolonged. So it is basically to prolong the duration of the vaccine cover. And they showed that, the efficacy was slightly higher. But in a country like India, what the government stance is to protect and cover as many people as possible for slightly longer time as possible. And in that way, the 28-day period. So anywhere between 4 weeks to 12 weeks is the time that you should be taking. Whether it actually, increases your efficacy just based on one study, right now, I don't think I'm, qualified enough to say that. But definitely it takes 2 to 3 weeks for your antibodies to start developing from the first dose. So anytime after that, you can take your booster. And whether it is better to take at 12 weeks or not based on one study, I wouldn't be the right person to answer that.